Hello everyone. Welcome to day 3 of our challenges here in Premiere. I'm Evan Abrams. Welcome. Thanks for being with me. We're going to challenge you to use some of Premiere Pro's newer features, new this week since Adobe Max. If you're not familiar with them, hopefully you will be soon by the end of this little series we're doing. I'm here all week, so if you've missed any of the challenges, you can always watch them back again and see where we're at. But today I'll be challenging you to make use of the new Polygon tools within the Essential Graphics panel of Premiere. We're going to be masking out some footage. We'll be masking out some lovely footages from Adobe stock. We're going to be creating a nice little intro that will be suitable for, say, a video podcast or an interview type show. Really anything where you need to kind of move things through like that. But yeah. So we shall see. If we are able to make that happen. Oh, hopefully I've got that. Hopefully we've got that echo locked down. Hopefully. Let me know. Let me know if anything sounds strange, if anything looks strange. But thank you, Laura, Umacorn, Valder, hello, Katrina, RB, Reverb Mike, what's going on? And Annika holding it down in the chat here, keeping us moderated. Okay, so without further ado, let's have a look at the screen and see what we're doing. Boop. Okay, screen. Looking good over here. So here's what we are going to be producing. We've had some calming water already this week, but now we are going to be putting some graphics over top of it, making many graphical clips here in the timeline. And as you can see here, we've got Deep Talk, the Marine Philosophy podcast. You can probably tell that I don't produce a lot of podcasts. But the idea is we've got some footage. We want to try to mask it cleanly, right? So that we can display it nice and cleanly here. If you want to get your hands on the files that I'm using, links in the description, links are in the chat right there. And hopefully it's going to be a good time for you to follow along. But don't worry, you don't have to follow along live. You can always watch this back. These are all recorded. So what are we going to be doing? Well, generally, if we wanted to drop things down on the timeline, you might say, well, I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to grab my elements here. I'm going to plonk them down on the timeline. And then maybe I would, we could take a polygon tool and we can actually just draw, we can actually draw like a mask if we wanted to draw some masking on them. But what I recommend you do instead is, instead of dropping our footage right down there, if we know we want to mask it with something, I would actually recommend that over here in the Essential Graphics zone, that is where we want to be bringing things. Okay, so what I'm going to do is over here, I've just moved ahead on my timeline away from the sequence, the beautiful sequence that I've already made, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the new layer on our Essential Graphics. If you don't have Essential Graphics open, you can go Window, down to Essential Graphics, pop this open. Default, it looks at the old Browse tab for bringing in templates. We're going to be creating something unique for ourselves, going into the Edit part, and we are going to hit here, New Layer. Now, I'd like to come down and I'd like to make use of the new polygon shapes, which are lovely procedural shapes. They're parametric shapes that we can create. And we can just come in here and say, hey, how many points would you like this to have? I'll take 6 of them, please, or however many you so desire. You can really crank this up, crank this down. And then we're just going to dial in kind of the size here, maybe something that's 300 by 300, right? It fits in a little square. And the other thing that's really great about this here is we can round off the corners. So you can see that we're just giving it a bit of rounding. Actually, let's make this larger. Let's go 600 by 600, really go big with it. And so you can really appreciate kind of the rounding that's taking place in here. Now, this shape can also be rounded if you use your direct selection, your selection tool with V here. You can actually grab the points within here. And if I can just hover over them, you can see that you can grab these little circles just like you're going to see in Illustrator, and you can manipulate this manually out here in your program monitor, right? So if you need to manipulate them out there, you can. I prefer to dial in. I like to be a little bit precise with what I do. Bring them in like this. And yes, you could copy and paste some paths, right? We could draw these paths manually, many ways to get a nice shape in here. And this is going to serve as our mask. So anything that we drop behind it, we want it to be masked. So let's go ahead and grab our first host for the program here, some footage from Adobe stock. I'm going to drag that not down onto the timeline, but instead I'm going to drag it up into the Essential Graphics. I'm going to drag it underneath that shape. Now, that's not the only way to bring files in here. So I'll just undo that, and you can, under New Layer, you can actually say From File. And this would allow you to select footage from anywhere, bring that in, it'll populate it into your project, and it'll drop it down as a layer in here. So if you wanted to bring things, maybe they're logos, maybe they are shapes, maybe they're JPEGs, maybe they are PNGs, pings, TIFFs, all kinds of things, bring them in that way. But we can just, we're a drag and drop place around here, so we're going to drop this in right here. Now, selecting the top shape, I'm going to come down here and say, let's mask with shape. So doing that, we're saying, hey, we're going to take whatever this shape is, whatever the vectors are of that shape, and we're going to mask whatever's below it here. And in fact, there could be multiple things below it. Let's drag the other host in there. And you can see, oh, yeah, that's being masked as well. If I drag this aside, you can see anything under that shape is being masked. So if you had multiple things that you wanted to put inside the same hexagon, we are able to do this. Let's just undo. Now we're going to go back here. We're going to try to center this up here a little bit, like so, just so that as the footage plays through, yeah, they're nice and in frame. Beauty, loving that. Now, there are some other options that we want to try to look after in here. Now, we've got some shadows, we've got some strokes, and if we have a stroke on an object, you can see right now it's really just expanding the alpha bounds of that particular object. Unless I say mask only with fill. Now this means that only the filled areas are going to be doing any masking. So right now I've got a stroke and it's set to center. And so you can see that this is now creating a nice little barrier around the outside. Now if you wanted it to truly only be on the outside, you could set it to outer like that. If you would prefer it on inner, we can do this. And if you come up to our little wrench up here, you can have round joints, round caps if you'd so desire. Right, we can work that out for our shapes. But we're gonna go ahead and put this, say, on the center. And I think that'll be totally fine like that. Now, with this shape, right, we probably want to animate this coming on in some way. So anytime you want to animate something that you find in your Essential Graphics, well, please come on over to the Effects Controls window. If you don't have one of those open, again, window, Effects Controls up here. It's usually open whenever you select an object, right? And you're going to see a little timeline up in there, right, that represents the timeline of that particular clip. And so let's see, what I want to do is I would like to twirl into the shape 1, and I'm not going to deal with the appearance. I just want to deal with the transform of this. And I'm going to scale this up and down, right? So it's going to scale up. So let's see, maybe let's scale it here to say 100% here. I'm just going to scrub ahead a little bit, and we're going to say set a keyframe there. Maybe I'll scrub back to the beginning and I'll set a keyframe at 0. And so now you can see that this is getting larger like so. Now, clicking on the stopwatch is what causes keyframes to be active for that particular property. And let's see, if I scrub ahead just a little bit more, I'm going to set this down to maybe like 90, something like that. What I'm trying to do is to cause a little bit of a bounce in our property. Boop. So it looks a little bit cartoonish, a little bit fun coming in, kind of like that. Now, the movement of this is not particularly how I would like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to right click on them and I'm going to say ease in. And I'm also going to say ease out. If I twirl down into the scale here, you can see we've got a nice little graphical representation of what that speed looks like now. Whoop. And when we play it back and forth, you can see that it is now an enjoyable whoop. Popping on like that. Now, the sound effects are really important to dialing in your motion, I must say. But congratulations, we now have one person kind of popping on here. I might want sort of an extra border around this as well. And while we can, with our shape, come in here and add even more strokes around the outside, Because it's all scaling from this shape's scale, we're not really able to have compounded motion. So if we want even more, nuance to this, let's go ahead and we are going to take shape 1 here and I'm going to duplicate it. So we're just going to copy and paste. We've created another shape and this one is going to live at the bottom. We're not going to be masking with its fill at all, but we want it also to not be masked. So the thing we have to do is create a little group, and this group is going to hold these 2 objects here. So now the shape down at the bottom, which I'm going to give kind of like, let's give it a nice, maybe like a purple kind of color here. I'll just expand that a little bit. So now you can see that this shape is now visible sort of below here. And if we scrub through, the thing that's kind of important is this shape, because we duplicated it, has come with all of the same keyframes that were living on that first shape. So if I twirl down into the transform of these, and I say give them a little bump, I'm going to just bump these a little bit like that so they're a little bit offset. You can see that now we have this nice kind of trailing motion that's happening from this. Now, I do a lot of my animation in After Effects where the interface is a little bit different. If you want to get incredibly nuanced animation, you want to bring in many things in here, you may want to be cracking open After Effects. But thanks to the advances in the Essential Graphics panel, we now have a lot more access to shape interactions and masking interactions and those types of things. It used to be really the province of After Effects. So we can do some fairly complex things in here. You may just want to expand your timeline up here so that you can have good real estate to really work with these particular keyframes and such as we need to kind of manipulate them. And in particular, if you're going to be doing any manipulations to these graphs, expanding them down so that you can really grab these handles and give them a pull if you'd like to. So keep that in mind as you work. Okay, so we've got one person popping on here. I think that's great. I'm going to collapse these groups a little bit. I'm going to come up here to just go ahead and grab the vector motion group. Now, this is basically a group that controls, that houses all the other groups within it. So if we come over here to, say, the position, let me give this a little bit of a push over to the side. You can see we're moving all of the stuff over to the side. So now it's hanging out over here a little bit. Let's give it a little push even more, bring it up a little bit. And let's see, I'll just collapse this a little bit, pull this open, and I want to have a look at my kind of grid markers on here, my drawn on guides. So there we go. I've got this right where I'd like it there. And I want sort of a duplicate of this object. So all I'm really going to do is grab this thing and holding down, for me, it's Option on my keyboard and dragging up, and that will produce a second clip. And they're 2 totally independent clips. Now I'm just going to drag its position over a bit like there. So now we've got 2 of these. Whoop, popping on. And all I really want to do is change out who we see in this image. Therefore, what we're going to do is we're going to grab in here and we're going to remove this object and we are going to drop this into there like that. So there we go. Now we've got the new host. The new host is hanging out in here. That's true. I'm trying to not get too too sucked into the chat. All my wonderful sound effects going over it very nicely. I still have not delivered on the EC Abrams vocal sound effects package. That'll be we'll see if we ever get there with recording that. So the next thing I want to do here is to just offset these things a little bit, right? And by offsetting them in time, we can create a nice little kind of cascading effect of these. And if you find that maybe they're snapping together, you can turn snap off, and that'll give us a little bit more fine control like that. Oh, and that's feeling fantastic, right? Isn't that great? Now, I'm going to actually move these up a level. So we have a track that we can put in behind. And of course, we're going to drop some footage down there. Nice calm blue ocean that you've been seeing earlier this week. So we're going to have that going on. Whoop, whoop, like so. just going to hit Control D so that it has our default transition. So transition on, weep, weep. And now we need some text under here, right? We got to say what program we're watching, really critical. And we want that to live on, not a layer, a track above, right? So we would say. So if you need to make tracks above, you can grab any object and just pull it one up, and it's going to create a new video track up there. I've already got one created, but if you need to make more, that's a great way to do it. Nice and accessible right here. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go in our essential graphics. We're going to add some text. And so this new text layer needs to have some words in it. And of course, we're saying this is called Deep Talk, and this is going to be, I think I meant to say marine biology podcast, a marine biology podcast. But I think originally, yes, I said marine philosophy podcast, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's fine. So within our essential graphics, we have a lot of interesting tools to help us line stuff up to the frame here. I'll take my guides off here. And I'm going to say, let's align horizontally. Let's align vertically like this, get into the middle center. And maybe I want the text to be kind of centered or left aligned or right aligned, right? And what I would recommend here, right, we'll probably just go into the center. And we could, right, let's center that up. We could say, let's take Deep Talk. Let's make it, say, 200 large. Let's take the subtitle here. Let's bring that down a little bit like this to maybe 60. And then we'll just kind of move this to where we want it to reside. Now, because we have combined basically these two ideas, right, in these two bits of text into one object, let's say we wanted to edit this really quickly without having to modify anything about this particular graphic. Well, we can load up the text window. So if you go Window, grab Text, and within that, you're going to find the Graphics window. And you see here, you can actually select the text that is in the project, and it's going to time code it in here. You see a little preview image. And let's say we're just going to change this to there we go. We'll just change that word, and that works out pretty fine. So that could be totally fine for your work. But just keep in mind that should we incidentally delete that line, and then we start typing again, the second line will take on the formatting of that first line. That's because they both live basically in the same text object. So it might be worth considering breaking this up into multiple texts, right? So what I'm going to do is we're going to have this, and I'm going to remove like the stroke in the background, and then I'll just create, or actually I'll just duplicate, right? We'll see, Control V, right? Produce a second one here. And maybe this is like episode 320, sharks. What's up with those? And we'll just bring it down like that. And with this element here, right, we can now pretty easily just kind of bring that down like so. So they're going to kind of be related to each other. But now these two things are very different elements that we can edit independently, and their formatting won't interrupt each other. So if you want to deal with them over here in the graphics panel, you can, and they will not change their formatting around. Oh, but of course we need to put a rectangle back there, so we can just go ahead and get a new rectangle in there. Let's put the rectangle under everybody, right? And let's figure out where that rectangle should be. We're going to use, say, that as our fill color, and here we go. We're going to make that, say, this tall. We're going to go this wide. We are going to, maybe we will round off the corners of that a little bit. And we've got another element that we can bring into the space, right? Now, the fun thing is that with shape layers and the like, right? We can deploy things like shadows on them. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove this so we can focus on these two fine people right here. Within these, right, there are, if we come up to the shape here, we can say, let's put a shadow on that. Now, hopefully you can see, and I'll maybe have to zoom in a little bit for us to really enjoy this little bit here. You can see we've got a shadow here that also is not lost due to masking. So we've got a shadow coming off of that, and then off this shape, let's put a shadow on that, and you can tweak up the shadows to your taste, but that'll add a little bit of depth to get these things moving off of each other a little bit. So if we come back to the original, just fit it in here, you can see how nicely it is to have these kind of layered experiences here. That little bit of drop shadow gets these things popping off of each other. So weep, weep, like that. Now, whenever you have graphics of any kind, right, whatever it is, no matter what the object is, we can always, always, always come into the effects controls. And if we wanted this thing to show up, if we just want it to cross dissolve, we've got our dissolves here on the ends. Right? So you can always use a regular transition to bring that in. I often prefer with any graphics to just try to move the thing just a little bit as it's coming in, call attention to itself. So I like to set a keyframe at its final resting position, and then maybe we just move this up a little bit, and now I'm going to play that back. You see it kind of clunks to a stop. That's not particularly what I'm after. So I'm going to grab this keyframe here. Let's twirl into the position so you can really see what happens. I'm going to right click on it. We're going to go temporal interpolation. And we're going to say ease in. We're easing into that keyframe. You can see how the graph is affected when we do that. And now you can see, it's having a nice chill time. Maybe I'll give this handle a little pull so that it looks a little bit more extreme. Coming down, there we go. Now that's feeling like we're sinking into some deep waters. There we go. Now you may want to come in here and we may want to adjust things about, say, that shape. Maybe we'll make that shape. We'll bring its opacity down to like 80% or something like that. So we have a lot of options for how these things are going to look next to each other, how they're going to interact, and yeah, it is coming together nicely. I think so. Now, keep in mind, one of the things that I wanted to highlight about this type of method is how easy it is to just swap out these particular assets. Because this mask is doing all of the work of controlling where things should be seen, it's as easy as dropping any new element in below here, right? And you're going to get that piece right where you want, right? This is someone interviewing themselves, which could be an interesting concept, but this is a great way to produce graphics that are going to hopefully serve you for the length of a program, make it really quick to get things out, and these nice, beautiful, clean edges that we can adjust with parametric numbers makes me happy when we can be doing that all the time. Then when it's done, you want to share it with people, and I want you to share your work with me. So if you've been following along this week, you know that I have been talking up coming over to our Frame.io panel here. So when you've got something you want to share, you can always come over here and open up a project. You could add a project to here, and all you need to do is come up here and go upload your active sequence, right? You'll save the sequence somewhere on your hard drive with these settings. The Web 1080 settings are perfectly good, but if it's a very long thing, maybe you want to go Web 720, it'll be a lot smaller. And if you're really, really, really concerned about fidelity, use the ProRes settings in here. Those will look the nicest. But we can go Web 1080, and once you upload your things, it's going to render, it's going to upload. You hit these three little buttons here and say share for review. Can't make a link of that one. But you can share these things for review. Make sure that it is a project that you do indeed have open. So these, actually, you know what I should do? We're going to do that. We're going to upload the active sequence. Send this up. It will open Media Encoder. It'll send the things off. We're going to see how quickly it goes. I know we're pressed for time here right at the end, but it goes by pretty quickly. Once you do that, please share it with me on the Discord so that I can observe it. I can give you some notes, some time-coded notes that you might enjoy, that might be worthwhile to see. And all you got to do is get me the link, send me that thing, and it's going to be fantastic. So here you go, your 3 dots, share for review, and it'll produce a link. You copy that, you send it over to me. It's going to be great. But yeah, so brings us to the end of today's discussion. I hope you learned a thing or two about our new Polygon tool, about rounding off those corners. We want to get those nice, clean, rounded corners. Beautiful shapes now available here in Premiere. Also, I'm coming back to you tomorrow. We have another challenge for you tomorrow, and we'll see how challenging that will be. We're making some more interesting titles that are a little bit more dramatic. Right, so hopefully that'll be a good thing, leveraging more graphical features here in Premiere, and I hope that you enjoy it. Of course, I'm Evan Abrams. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay creative, be kind to each other, and we'll see you all next time right here on Adobe Live. Bye for now.